Welcome to the second grade, 5th 6 weeks curriculum preview. Let's get rolling. All right, by the end of the 6 weeks, we would like for a student to be at a text level M. Really prefer them to be at an M. We need them to be reading independent for greater than 20 minutes at a time. By the end of the 6 weeks, we have 3 minutes of independent reading and self-selected text at their independent text level and 300 minutes of independent or the guided reading instructional at 300 minutes. So those are the hours we need. And remember about how a child needs to read at least 70 minutes a day to really improve a level. The other expectations that you're going to see that are tied to our standards is that we want the students to be able to use text features and literary elements before and during reading to stay engaged in the text and to read independently with comprehension and fluency. So if we want them to be at a level L, let's take a look at what the continuum says. These are the characteristics, the descriptors of what a level L book looks like. But then this is the characteristics of a reader at that level. In the book, The Continuum of Literacy Library, in the very back, the last tab, it's the guided reading L. The pages 274 through 277 show you the behaviors to notice and it goes into the 3 types of thinking. And on page 276, it gives you the word work that you would need to do for a level L. So the continuum is a great resource to use. So let's also take a look at the other reading expectations. By the end of the 6 weeks unit, I want them to be reading all Unit 1-5 sight words fluently in isolation and in context. We wanting those so secure. Then I want them completing 3 weekly reading responses. So I've given you some things. We know that you have your tic-tac-toe that you can find in yearly content. And then we also, in your assessments in your Norma Jackson resources, you have a rubric for literary responses, and it shows how to get a grade for the responses. Also, if you've not done the rubric for independent reading, that might be a really good thing to introduce and to really, because you can get a grade for that as well. And let's talk about PDSA with reading. We want the reader's notebook to record their learning. So how am I growing as a reader is a great thing to do each 6 weeks for them to be PDSA about their goals as a reader. So use that tool as well. Remember, there's no substitute for eyes on text reading. Just like I said before, that student needs at least 60 minutes a day, not 70, but at least 60 to 70 minutes a day in that Just Right book, in the Just Right book, and then also in instructional books. So during the day, they need time in their Just Right books, and then they also need time with you at the guided reading table, reading with on their instructional and instructional level, and then reading also grade level material. So if that helps you. But I'll ask the question, what kind of book boxes do your children have? What kind of self-selection do they have? You kind of have to facilitate manipulate that to make sure that they have books that they're reading. If you need some help on what is a Just Right book and how to get kids to do that, just give me a call and we'll talk about that. But I ask you the question, who's doing the reading? Kids need to be reading for us to see improvement. Let's take a look at word study. We want them to identify at least the 300 frequency words for a commonly list. They need 250 words right now at this level. That once again, the 10 to 12 vocabulary words. They're going to be working in spelling on vowel digraphs and then spelling high fluency words. So let's take a look at what you would do with word study. Remember, building vocabulary through literature is a great resource to help you figure out what vocabulary words need to be chosen. With word study, you're going to be looking at vowel digraphs. AI that first week, AI and AY the first week, OO and EW the second week, and then after that EE and EA, and then trigraph IGH and Y, and then vowel digraph OA and OW. I would suggest that you find books that have these so they can practice. You'll also be talking about the digraph suffix rule. So look at your English word study to declare what you need there. Academic vocabulary. This is the academic vocabulary for this 6 weeks. Very important, like we're talking about letters. So you have writing letters about text features, table of contents, illustrations, topic sentences, Those type of things are very important, and be sure to use your reader's notebook to help them understand that vocabulary. Your lead standard for the 6 weeks is Figure 19A. They're expected to use text features and or literary elements before and during reading to stay engaged, like generating questions, anticipating the kind of information the text will reveal, predicting outcomes, and drawing conclusions. So here are your other process skills. You want them to use their strategies to confirm, to use illustrations, titles, topics, keywords to make and confirm predictions. We want them to read with a variation of expression. We also want them reading at an independent reading level of L. In poetry, we want them expect to read and compare a collection of poems written by the same poet. Then we also want them to identify the elements of a dialogue and to use them in informal plays. Fiction, we want them to be able to describe similarities and differences in the plots and settings of several works by the same author. Then expository text, we want them to use the text features like table of contents, headings to locate specific information in text. And then with informational text and procedural text, students will be able to tell you how do the graphics assist in understanding the procedural text. So let's take a look at what our focus lessons might look like. If you've got your overview, you might want to introduce it with the this grade level poster. Also, reading media literacy. You want them doing different purposes for media, informal and informational. You might look at the clarifier for that one to see what you would need to do with that. So let's look at Figure 19A. So in their overview, it talks about how to use picture books that have talking about letters, because one of the writing things is they're going to be writing letters. So you're going to be looking at how do I use picture books to really stay engaged with what's going on. So here are some different ones that you've seen in your overview that are about letters. So you could do 3 kinds of thinking with that. The comprehension toolkit will really help with Figure 19A of asking questions if you've not done it. If you've already done the model lesson, then get the guide lesson and rinse and repeat with books of your choice or some of these books up here. One of the things I really like reading A to Z and RAS Kids, and I hope that you'll take the time to look at the just-in-time learning, because it shows you how to use the resources if you don't know how to use the resource of RAS Plus. So one of the things is you want students making predictions. So this is a projectable in RAS Kids, and you would put this up and then talk about what kind of predictions from what they're seeing, from the types of words they have, the keywords, the titles, the illustrations, what are you expecting to see? And then copy a bunch of books that are on their reading level and let them do that during independent reading. Say, before you read the book, I want you to predict what you think this book about. Do a picture walk and just look through the pictures and then predict what you think is going to happen in this book. Then read the book and then show me and tell me what predictions came true. So that would be a great one to really practice that skill. In poetry, reading several poems by the same author, I found this great. Ken Nesbitt has some great poetry. This is the link here. So you could put up his poems, and because he's by the same author, but you could use Shel Silverstein. There's lots of other great ones, because the kids will really enjoy being able to compare and see how an author really kind of uses the same type of things in a poem. But this is a great website. In drama, you don't have a whole lot in your treasures, so I went to Reading A to Z, and there I found the Reader's Theater scripts, and there you can find there's printables and projectables, so the kids will be able to really, even though there might not be quotation marks around it, you talk about that as the characters talk in a play, that gives you a lot about, what the play is about. So RAS Kids is a great thing to use, that Reader's Theater. Now, when you're in literary fiction, expecting to describe similarities and differences in plots and settings, in your treasures unit 1, you have Mr. Putty and Tabby. Then you could go to the library and find the other books by that same author and really do a mini lesson on comparing and contrasting. Same thing with Treasures Unit 4. You have Officer Buckle and Gloria. So you would read those books pick a book, one of her other books, like Goodnight Gorilla. What are the similarities and differences in the plot? How do they are alike? And so, in independent reading time, then you would give kids a book by the same author and ask them to, after reading both books, to show you a comparison. Make a chart or create a video telling them about the two books, how they're like and how they're different, using that digital media. Expository text, expected to use text features. In Reading A to Z, there's a great lesson. As you look at the just-in-time, you'll see that you can actually search by standard, and this is what I found when I got on this particular standard. A perfect home, it's projectable that you could use during the mini lesson, and then it gives you a 5-day lesson plan. So make sure you look at the just-in-time to figure out how to do that. In Treasures Unit 6, Way to Help Planet Earth, the Comprehension Toolkit Strategy Book 1, Lesson 2 and 3, use the guide lessons to help you with really finding those text features and what they do. Procedural text, they're expected to use common graphics. This is a great little book from Reading A to Z. It's a projectable. You could teach them how, in this story of a procedural text, the pictures, how do the pictures help you, and what do they help the reader to understand? In your guided reading groups, I just hope that you are using your lesson plans. They'll help you to guide you through making sure you have everything in that guided reading lesson. Also, you're getting your leveled books and using them there. Also, using your leveled library, making sure your kids are on the pathway in RAS Kids, and like you're just in time, be sure and watch it. Our writing expectations are that the students are at a stage 7 in their conventions and in their ideas and development of ideas. By the end of the 6 weeks, we want them writing independently for greater than 20 minutes of time. We'd like to see 2 first draft personal narratives, then 2 first draft informational texts about the content they're learning or an area of expertise, and they get to write and discover about the friendly letter. So we want them to distinguish between irrelevant and superficial details and relevant information to provide pertinent information in the first draft. So really is we wanting them to do their stories, beginning, middle, and end, but to really look at the details that they are writing in their writing. In the writing process, we want them using that second grade organizer to independently plan, and in the second grade that would be your 3-box plan. Using that not as to fill it out, but using it as that model of what's the heart of my story. Then in developing drafts, we want them to be able to use meaningful transition to guide the reader smoothly through the composition. In revision, helping them to and having the expectation that they're going to replace general or repetitive information with specific details that make the reader have a clearer picture. And then always with editing, every day editing what they've written to proofread for complete sentences, and those boundaries, capitalization and punctuation is so very important. Procedure text, we want them writing about how to do what procedure. In conventions, we are looking at adjectives and their purpose, how to use and understand adjectives. So let's take a look at, if you're looking at your overview, you want to compare digital communications to letter writing. So you could talk about that. That would bring your media literacy in as you write letters. Say, what do people now do instead of write letters? They send emails or they send text messages. And what's the good things and maybe not so good things about that? You are looking at how narrative and expository are different and alike, comparing them. Review a writer's 2 best friends, how and why, because that will help them in their writing. You're going to use the stop pair rating scale to assess. And you also have adopt a plot. The lesson plans and routines are in the yearly content. You have the adopt a plot for expository writing, and it's step by step about what you do. You're going to be modeling using the 3-box plan to write a simple expository text. So by the end of the 6 weeks, they should be able to use the 3-box planner to write a simple expository text. As you are doing your writing workshop, as you have your mini lesson and they go out to write, I would I want to see that clipboard in your hand, walking around monitoring and looking at doing those short 1 to 2 minutes conferences with kids, making notes that will help you in maybe doing some of those focus lessons. Each day, focus on the same 1 to 2 target skills. Hold them accountable for those. So what we're doing this time is repeatedly proofreading for complete sentences and making sure that they capitalize the first word of the sentence and put the correct punctuation on the end. Really getting them to secure that. We hope that, you, as always, our digital learning specialists always are so great. This is a link showing you how kids are using iMovie to really create things, and I've kind of given you some examples. But make sure you use your digital learning specialists. They are so great to add choice about responses for your kids. So that's second grade, 5th, 6 weeks. I hope you have a great 6 weeks. Please watch the Just in Time. It will help you with knowing all about reading A to Z. Have a great planning time.